very special format where we combine the public interesting discussion with the option of informal networking offline before and after the discussion. So we already had quite a nice chat with those of you who registered before and are with us on Zoom, but we would also like to welcome those of you who are joining us and listening via Facebook. You are also very welcome to actively participate and put your questions in the comment function. So we will just pick them up and bring them into the chat so that our host and moderator can see them. Today we have very special kitchen talk, because usually we have the host and guests from different countries. And today we have only a Polish expert being in Poland, or usually being in Poland, because as you all know, we had the elections last Sunday. Now there are a lot of questions of what the outcomes will bring with them, or what how will it bring to the media and journalists in the country, and this is what we will discuss tonight. Thank you very much, Jan, for your initiative. The floor is yours. Please keep in mind that this discussion is being recorded. So Jan, please go ahead.
Oh, it sounded as a warning. This is recorded. So welcome you, all of you. My name is Jan Opierka, and I thank you, Paulina, for the introduction. And I would like to welcome all of you, and of course, especially Ludwika Włodek, publisher and sociologist of the University of Warsaw, and Karolina Zbytniewska, who is editor-in-chief of the media platform Euractiv.pl. My name is Jan Opierka, and I am a freelance journalist working for several German-speaking media, and also for radio station, but also for Polish media for several years. And yeah, the reason why I just proposed to Paulina to n-ost this meeting, and we developed it together then, was because I am somewhat moved by the thing, or by the development that is going on in my country, because I'm Polish and German, but now I'm Polish, stronger Polish, and I am kind of afraid also what is happening, not only to the media, but also to the whole democracy, so to speak, a little bit pathetical, and the standards that are now introduced and are changing in our society. And now we have, of course, the direct cause to talk about that, because we had an election, as you know, on Sunday was the second round of the presidential election, and it turned out how it turned out. So Andrzej Duda will, for the next 5 years, keep the president, and Andrzej Duda comes from the government, National Conservative Government Party, Justice and Justice, Right and Justice. And I am really kind of afraid what will happen now. And as I said, this is the main cause why we are talking now. And I will give a short introduction maybe, and as you said, Paulina, then I will invite you all to of course ask questions also in the first round, but then we will open it to the discussion. But in the first round, I would like to ask some questions, of course, to Karolina and to Ludwika. And the background of the situation of the media is that really in this election campaign, it's turned out that the media in Poland became a topic in itself. So there were on the one side there was very much criticism of the public media, which is supporting or is supporting just like the government and also Andrzej Duda, and it is doing so in a very, very low standard ways, to speak it. You can also talk about propaganda. It's really propaganda, how parts, at least, of the public TV stations are sending news or are making the news. It is really propaganda. This is on the one side, but on the other side, there are still very many critical media, government critical media that are supposed to be independent or really are independent, and that in main backed the candidate of the opposition, Rafał Trzaskowski, and they did it in a way that government officials and also President Andrzej Duda just like wants to change something in that. So wants to change the situation that there are still many media outlets that are critical and that have an impact on the society, so much that the result was open until the end. And I think my perspective is that they now see that, yeah, it is on the media. So the media is the key to keep in power or to stay in power or to lose it. And this is the situation in my opinion. But my first question to you, Karolina and Ludwika, would be how you see this, and maybe from this perspective that being, of course, in Poland or living and working in Poland, I have the impression that that there is a shift of standards, talk about the media, and that we are now just like talking about if media is pro or for the government or if it's against. What do you think? Do you see it in a similar way? And if, do you think it is a normal development that we have to be for or against the government or not?
Who would you like to start?
Okay. Who would like to start? Karolina? Oh.
I may.
Okay.
I think that so maybe first I will quote the situation that happened just recently with n-ost when I was asked to write the analysis for the publication on the freedom of the media within the lockdown, entitled "A Lockdown for Independent Media." And actually, what you just said, I was asked to mention which Polish media are critical of government and which are not critical of the government. So this was kind of the narration that was imposed on me. Maybe I would offer some other classification, I don't know. The other thing is that actually the word independent media is still used. When I watch the public TV Wiadomości, so the major news program at the prime time in the evening, they use independent media, media niezależne, redakcje niezależne, in a way, in inverted commas, to point out that they are actually very much dependent from whom? From Germany mostly, and from other external powers. But more now, leaving the examples, I would like to say that this divide is far greater than just limited to the media landscape. So it goes into the whole of the society. It's exactly like with the whole phenomenon of authoritarian populism, or how you name it. It also escapes these classifications of left-wing, right-wing, the center. So according to the most definitions of populism, populists divide societies into the enemies of the state and people exactly being not critical toward them, not critical to the government. I have the book of Kasmudde, a very short introduction to populism, exactly saying that populism ultimately separates society into two homogeneous and antagonistic camps. So I think that nothing unites better than a common enemy. And newcomers, political newcomers in many countries managed to gain success due to the post-2008 crisis, plus due to digitization of our lives. And then they radicalized the language. They were pointing at enemies, enemies external and internal. External, like, for example, refugees, but also, for example, in Hungary, there were so many different enemies on the state. They were also so-called, it's not the word politically correct anymore, but it was used there. So gypsies, there were Jews, there were liberal intellectuals, then there were refugees. But indeed, the major enemy of the state is the the citizens of the society that are critical of those who are managing the discourse. So I think that it is the major success of populists. It's them who define who is, for example, Polish, who is a real Polish, who is a real American, who is the real Brit. And exactly the same is happening within the media and in politics and in the whole society. So
okay, maybe before Ludwika, before you answer the question, thank you for that. I would just like to add to that question after what you said, Carolina, because I have the impression that it is like that pro against, just as you said it, and with the populist thing, I also agree. But there are still some media, I think, that are a kind of not against and not for. For example, Polsat. Pardon me?
Euractiv, for example.
Euractiv, maybe. Okay, so Euractiv, but of the bigger media, so to speak, there is Polsat, so a TV station that I think is just like the news is quite neutral, and also Rzeczpospolita, which is sometimes it's against the government, sometimes for. So is it a necessity that it turns out to be like you said, Carolina? What do you think, Ludwika?
In my opinion, being independent, being not non-critical already makes you already gives you a stand. So, for example, on the example of Euractiv, the fact that we don't praise the government, the fact that we write about European Union itself, it positions us as a free media, which makes us suspicious, I would say. With Polsat, it's not so easy anymore, because it used to be very central and independent, but you know, there were some pressures from the government, and the whole news section of Polsat, so one of the three biggest TVs in Poland, has been transformed. The new chief editor of the news section has been hired, so Polsat also used its total independence. And Rzeczpospolita, as we all know, has, despite being centered and not very much critical of the government, it is already also positioned as critical. For example, in Wiadomości that I already mentioned on Monday, it was mentioned as one of the independent media that our Prime Minister is publishing governmental advertisements in, spending public money for support, and these actions were criticized for Polish Prime Minister supporting independent media. So as I said, independent in the inverted commas in the discourse used by public media means enemy media. Okay. So Rzeczpospolita and Polsat, just by being not being for the government, are already treated as against.
What do you think, Ludwika? Do you agree with that?
Yes, more or less. I mean, with Polsat, it's maybe difficult to explain to you. I mean, to those of you who are not very familiar with the situation in Poland, but probably there was a case of blackmailing even the leadership of the TV station. And after that, they have really changed the position, and they became much less critical, I would say, toward the government than before. I think, of course, I do agree that we have this very, I mean, being objective is not very popular among Polish media. I think it is, first of all, connected to this very tense political situation. And of course, in such tense and very hot political atmosphere, people tend to behave like football fans. I mean, people look for a media which will somehow fulfill their sense of belonging. Not only, I mean, they are not only looking for news, but they are also looking, just, to find people thinking the way they think. But another thing is also that, it is also connected to this crisis of media, which is somehow interlinked with politics, but is also connected to the world we are living in. And I think being objective not sells very well, if you understand what I mean. I mean, it's very, writing an objective text is sometimes boring. You have to quote different experts, you have to give lots of numbers, and to elaborate on many issues. So, and it costs money, and sometimes it is just easier to write a text or publish a TV news or a radio news, which is very biased, but very spectacular, I would say. So this polarization might be also connected not only to politics, but also to, to the way the media world has changed in the last, let's say, 20, or maybe not even 20, in the last 10 years. And it is not only the case of really biggest media and those two biggest political camps. It is also the case of smaller media, for example, Krytyka Polityczna, where you publish sometimes. And it also happens to me, like not maybe lastly, but some times ago. And these are people I really appreciate, and I'm a friend with many of them. But during the campaign, as far as I know, some people within the team, they really wanted Krytyka Polityczna to support Biedroń very strongly. And some other people had another vision, and they wanted to be more objective. And for example, there was this huge discussion about publishing the letter of Szymon Hołownia addressed to the let's say, left side voters. Some people within Krytyka Polityczna thought it was something they shouldn't have done because, he's not from the left. And during the presidential campaign, probably we shouldn't publish such open letters because we should be more fervent for Biedroń, which is the real, candidate of the left side. So this is the problem not only of the two biggest TV stations like Public TV and TVN, big papers like Gazeta Wyborcza, but only smaller media, which, well, in theory, it should be easier for them to be objective, but in such a tense situation, it is not always the case.
Okay, we just also mentioned here Rzeczpospolita and Polsat as just like two examples. So that's an interesting example that you say the smaller media, just like Krytyka Polityczna and other people's media, citizen media. We will maybe come back to that later. But now I wanted to turn this around because maybe it's accidentally that Polsat and Rzeczpospolita are just like mainly Polish edited or owned by Polish companies. But as you may know, it was a main topic in this election campaign until the end of the campaign that the foreign media is making just like the election. And in one statement, the President Andrzej Duda said the Germans want to elect our Polish president because there was a colleague of ours, Philip Fritz, who just like wrote a critical article. Correspondents now support him from foreign countries, and yeah, this was just like thrown in. So the Germans or the foreign media are making campaigns, as PiS chef Kaczynski said this, or they want to elect our president, as Duda said. But I just like adding to that, or trying to question about that. I'm just thinking about that because I'm thinking about the situation like the following. In Poland, as you might know, some relatively big part of the media market is really owned or is controlled by media outlets, radio stations, print media, but also TV stations that are controlled by foreign capital, German capitals, Swiss capital, and also
but
Europe.
It's not only in Poland.
Yeah, but my question will be if I'm just sitting now in Germany, and I was living in Germany, and some of you might know better or less the market here, the media market here in Germany, and I just imagine how will be the reaction if a media company would buy 90 or 80% of the regional print media. So would there be a political reaction, or would it be just like regarded as normal that, for example, let's say a French company would buy German newspapers in not just like single papers, but just like 80% of the regional market as it is in Poland, for instance. So I'm just thinking if this isn't just like something that we accept in Poland or in other Eastern European countries as a normal situation. Okay, it is like that because they are bigger, they are stronger, they have the capital, and it is normal. But it would be a different standard maybe for the Western countries, just like in Germany. What do you think?
Well, this is a question of center and periphery. I mean, you cannot compare Poland or Ukraine or Czech Republic or Slovakia, which are, of course, like, we are periphery. I mean, we like it or not, but this is the matter. That's how it is. So you cannot compare our situation with Germany or France, which are center, of course, and it's gonna always be different. And of course, it's not as PiS tries to present it that Germany as Germany, not as like the particular entrepreneurs. And they, of course, the owners of media, they might have their own policy, but it has nothing to do with the policy of the German state. And of course they know it. They are not as stupid as that. I mean, they play this card on purpose and totally aware of the fact that it is not as they try to explain it, but they just need an enemy. This is what Karolina said, that a common enemy unites more than anything else. So yeah, and it's not, and it's, of course, it's not that like 90% of Polish press is owned by one foreign company. This is not the case, of course. Like most of Polish papers have this majoritarian owners which are from abroad, but there is somehow much more pluralism than they try to present it.
Yeah, I was just like talking about the regional print media.
Yeah,
and,
I know.
Papers, and this are owned by 80% by the German group, Polska Pressa. So for this is true, but I know what you think about the other media. What do you think, Karolina?
I
Are the different standards?
Turning around your question, what would happen if all the Polish media was given to the Polish capital, especially of private companies that are related to our government? This is the situation that is taking place in Hungary. And I think it doesn't really matter, or it shouldn't matter maybe, who owns, where from the media shareholders come from. What matters should be the certain standards and values that should be inscribed in the media activity. So the freedom, there is this value of the wall between business part of the media and the content. But I think that the same wall is necessary. It's not, I presume it's not only my opinion, but it's the opinion of everyone probably, that there should be a wall also between politics and the content. So it doesn't matter, to sum up, in my opinion, it doesn't matter where the media shareholders come from. What matters is the certain values, and the certain standards, and trust. The trust that can only, in the media, that can only be preserved if these standards and kind of a commitment to the public is preserved.
Okay, I think I would like to ask another question, because then we can open it for discussion. And as you may know, the government and also the president, but as I said, the government is the one that counts, and especially Jarosław Kaczynski, they just like already suggested that there will be some regulation or some reforms, so to speak, regarding the media. So repolonizing media or renationalization is just like the symbol word. What do you think, Karolina and Duda, what can happen really in the next 3 years on this field that will be just like the repolonizing of the media, but also for the work of journalists and of media itself? So will it be even more difficult to set or to work in a certain standard that we should work, regarding that the next 3 years the government has a free hand to govern? What do you think? Was the question clear, or?
Yeah.
Okay, so
sometimes don't know who
okay, so maybe Ludwika first.
Well, actually, I don't really know what may happen, but I can imagine that even there are things connected, to capital and to everything which is financial. And of course, the situation in media is not very good. And one, for example, which is very important for the printed media is public advertising, which was a big issue. And for example, when Platforma was in the government, the situation was different, for example, for media as Gazeta Wyborcza, and after PiS came to power, they lost really lot of public advertising, like ads of public, of big national companies. And of course, this is the way government may somehow try to influence the media market. Another thing is, of course, this the law they are talking about, which would be against the concentration. But I'm not an expert on it, so I really don't know how practically it could look like. So I won't tell you much about it. But of course, everybody is very much afraid because no one has doubts. The real aim is not to, you know, is not to deconcentrate the capital. It's just to, you know, to have an impact on the content, and that's pretty obvious. Of course, it is very, you know, for example, yesterday there was a discussion in Parliament, like summing up the no, it was today, sorry, summing up, you know, the elections, and the Vice Minister of Culture, he talked about the role of public media during the campaign. And he said something well, it is actually connected to n-ost, because this opinion I heard for the first time in Moscow. There was this conference organized by n-ost in 2012. No, it was not 2012, it was 2016 probably. Anyway, the very beginning of PiS being in power in Poland. And I went for this conference with a journalist, with a Polish journalist, which is Piotr Skwieciński, who nowadays is deputy editor-in-chief of W Sieci, which is very pro-government media. And we also had a panel discussion about media independence. There were people, I think, there was people from different independent Russian medias, and there were German journalists and Polish journalists, me and Piotrek, of course. And it was the first time I've heard this particular opinion, that public TV just has to be so pro-government because other media are so anti-government. And actually being so pro-government, they are making the situation more balanced, which is of course crazy, because the role of the role of public media is totally different. But which is funny and sad in the very same time is that this opinion is still used, and it is not a private journalist who says it. It is the Vice Minister of Culture who says exactly the same, that, well, he somehow agrees that yes, it's not objective. The public television definitely supports more the government than it should be, but this is because the private media are so anti-government that we have to somehow keep the keep the balance, and this is terrible, really.
You want to answer directly, because I would just wanted to add to what you said, Ludwika. Today was the meeting also in the parliament, and Jacek Kurski, so he is the CEO or the head of the public or the state television, and he was—
He's not the head. He's not the head, actually. He used to be the head, and he probably will become the head.
He's the informal head.
Yeah, informal.
The fact that he won the election, as several media wrote, and he was today in parliament and met some important PiS politicians, and Ryszard Stelecki, who just like leads the PiS party in the parliament, said after the meeting, what were they talking about? And he said, oh, we just talked about how to win the next elections. So my impression is that they are now seeing, okay, everything is possible now. We can even say everything.
Yeah, they say it overtly. Yeah.
What do you think? Yeah. What, in keeping that in mind, what do you think, Karolina? What will happen to the media in Poland in the next 3 years, especially to the independent?
So maybe first, in 2015, when PiS came to power, it actually started from a structural politicization of both free courts, so of judicial system, but also which was less conspicuous somehow because it was hidden by all the free courts protests. It did the same with the structure of the public media. And there were also attempts, not only what I and Ludwika mentioned about Polsat, what has happened. So it was an attempt at taking over their media independence, but there were attempts also at buying parts or the whole of TVN. So our major oppositional or independent, both, TV, which is owned by the American company Discovery.inc. So this is what has happened in short during the previous Law and Justice tenure. So as I said, they started with the restructurization and politicization of the media, of the public media. And now, only the day after, on the first interview that Jarosław Kaczyński, so the head of Law and Justice, gave to the media, to the Polish press agency, so state-owned, he said Polish media should be Polish. And as far as I know, as far as is known, the works on the new act on deconcentration of Polish media is already underway. So it will be happening. The same about repolonization. So often both will be connected. The most, maybe not the most, but the interesting thing is that the most critical of the government are media in Poland, so Gazeta Wyborcza and Polityka, so the most read weekly, political weekly, are owned by Polish capital. So they
Gazeta not entirely, I guess.
Sorry?
Gazeta not entirely.
Yeah.
Agora. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But mostly.
Yeah.
So they won't lose this these two important enemies. So the other thing one thing that will happen is this further deconcentration of the media and repolonization. But what will also happen will be the withdrawal of public companies' advertisement and communiques in the critical media, like we mentioned, Rzeczpospolita, Wyborcza, Polityka. So they are already, like all print media, experiencing financial troubles, and this will continue further. Together with losses in readership, they will also be losing this source of revenue that is becoming more and more important, and there will be all going into online more and more.
Okay, so thank you for this statement. Maybe we now should open, I could add something to what you said, but we have now 22:08, so I would like to open the discussion for comments or of course for questions to our both guests, and for me also can also answer. So feel free to speak. Please read the question here. Oh yeah. So is there someone?
Yes, I have a quick question.
So who was first? Maxim Edwards.
Yes,
okay.
I'm editing at Global Voices. So I don't know, I'm sure that some people in Poland saw this interesting art exhibition by a Ukrainian migrant who had put up a lot of ballot boxes across the streets in Warsaw to allow migrants, whatever migrants in Poland, to vote as a protest for them being excluded from the elections. And we've heard a lot, obviously it's very important as well to speak about the rights of LGBT Poles at the moment with Duda winning. But do you have any thoughts about what role Labour migrants played? I mean, rhetorically or indeed themselves in this election from Ukraine or elsewhere?
Labour migrants.
Labour migrants, immigration in general. It struck me that it wasn't really such a kind of topic of whipping up hatred this time as in the last election.
Yeah.
Well, actually,
yeah.
if I may say something. So this time, surprisingly, the migrants and refugees, both terms are very often, confused in Poland. It was out of the, it was not the issue. I think because the LGBTQ community just took place of the other, and it was the most hated one. And I guess that the only candidate who tried somehow to make an issue out of migrants was Bosak, Krzysztof Bosak, you know, the candidate from Konfederacja, which is on the right from Law and Justice Party. But, you know, actually, the government is not really against the migrants from Ukraine, because it cannot be against. They are really running our country. I mean, not running, but our economy could not exist without migrants from Ukraine. I live in Praga, which is a district of Warsaw, which is relatively cheap, and where there are cheaper flats to land. And actually, Ukrainian and Russian languages, I can hear them as often as I hear Polish in the streets. And if out of a sudden all Ukrainians leave Poland, everything would stop. Supermarkets would stop, schools, I mean, universities would stop. Like half of my students are Ukrainians. Really, half of my students are Ukrainians. Bus drivers are Ukrainians. Doctors are Ukrainians. Like everybody. So if someone says that starting from tomorrow you start leaving the country, we will be in troubles, and the government is pretty aware of that fact. So they would never try to somehow work on this, let's say, hatred toward migrants. You know, the migrant which might play a role of this other to hate is this, you know, Muslim refugee coming from Afghanistan or from Syria illegally, you know, pretending to be a war, refugee and being a real like migrant. But this time it didn't play any role. This time it was the LGBT community, not migrants, not refugees.
And not Islam either.
No.
Yeah, because Islam, so the refugee waves are not like in 2015 when we had the last presidential and parliamentary elections. They were that year 2 million of these people were running away from their homes into Europe. And there was this not well prepared quotas for relocation prepared. And yeah, it was just an easy target. And now this sword of intolerance, as Ludwika says, has been redirected into LGBT plus people. But also because you mentioned labor immigrants. So actually there have never been any huge, any important, conspicuous negative campaign on the central level against them. They were complaining that they are maybe not treated fairly in terms of legal things. Maybe sometimes they were discriminated against, but it has never been some huge negative campaign. It has always been about these others who are called refugees by the international law.
Just to add maybe one last thing, I think the LGBT topic, or the people, just like appeared in this election campaign when Trzaskowski appeared, you know. So they played the role of that the refugees played, just like from the perspective of the PiS 5 years ago or 1 year ago. But now the LGBT was just because of Trzaskowski, also because Trzaskowski, as the president of Warsaw, as the mayor of Warsaw, he just signed a LGBT charter last year. And so it was just like a gift for the PiS, that they can say, with this president, we will have just like such progressive LGBT laws, which you don't know. So this is, I think, important to mention, that it is closely linked to the appearance of Trzaskowski also, that the LGBT topic was just like risen.
Yeah. The funny thing is that he was made much more progressive than he really is, actually.
And one more thing, so this LGBT plus topic has been very much related to one of the major values that are mentioned by the government, meaning the family, but written, you know, with a really huge F in the beginning. And it's not just family, it's a traditional family. And I remember that in 2015, when the new government was forming, and there was no programs yet on the ministerial websites, I remember that I entered, for example, the Ministry of the Environment, and their one of their main goals was protecting traditional family. So it is, that's why it's also so important, because LGBT is not exactly, according to PiS, the designate for the traditional family, meaning a woman, a man, and their children, many of them.
I think there was also a question from you, Christian. Am I right? Or who has another question?
Oh, yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, before when you were speaking about the whole question of media ownership in Poland, and Karolina, I think, mentioned also the situation in Hungary, which is already much further down the road in this regard. There's a huge concentration of the media market in the government hand, and so it's often said that the PiS, if they could, is following kind of the Hungarian script, right? Orban's playbook, and wants to make Warsaw the Budapest at the Vistula, or I don't know how's the phrase go. And yeah, so in Hungary, what happened? You know, they very early, when they got the power, they introduced this media law, kind of as a basic. The state media turned into 100% propaganda tool. And foreign publishers, almost all of them, were pushed out very aggressively from the market. And although they could have resisted, but most of them didn't. Then what Ludwika also said, the state advertisement was slowly withdrawn from all media that is pro-government. And even the two biggest traditional newspapers with the highest reach had to close, and there were always very obvious political mechanisms taking place in the background. So it's like a very, very big revolution took place in the last years. And still the attacks against the remaining independent media continues. So even the ones that are still there, they can never be sure that they will be there tomorrow in a way. And just a few weeks ago, the largest online media, maybe you heard about it, Index, who announced that they are again feeling that there is something changing in the ownership structure, and they raised alarm. So My question would be: Is Poland kind of prepared for this? I mean, not Poland in general, but especially the side of, you know, like not necessarily anti-government, like the Democrats in Poland, the capital in Poland. That's always my hope, because Poland is much larger. It's not so easy to control economically like in Hungary. Are there still big economical players who are really committed to, you know, strengthen this pluralism? And also, if the atmosphere gets maybe worse for them, if their business interests might be endangered more than they are right now, if PiS in the next 3 years will tighten their grip. And because this is also what we saw in Hungary, that even the ones that, you know, wouldn't necessarily agree with the government, that after a while they just were pushed out, and they didn't feel like they can do it anymore. And even the remaining oppositional capital, so to say, kind of stopped supporting the media and so on. So is it something that will it be anticipated? Is it an advantage that you already know this scenario? And yeah, how can Polish media prepare in general for this or against this?
Karolina or Ludwika, you want to answer?
I can try.
Okay, we have just one thing. We have then a question from Patricia and then from Ulf. So maybe we can try to keep it short, as short as possible. But of course, you are free to answer.
I think that Polish media, maybe not only in Poland, that we exist is taken for granted, and it is a problem. It's visible when many smaller media outlets organize this support the free media buttons on their website, so that everyone can, there is no paywall, so everyone can contribute to support the free media at pressing times, really difficult times, and really very few people support us. And in terms of the companies that could help us meaning free media, the biggest companies in Poland are either state-owned or foreign. So I wouldn't say that any of these solutions is a perfect one.
Ludwika, you want also to say something?
Well, first of all, I think that still, I mean, Orban's position, political position in Hungary is much stronger than PiS position in Poland. And that's
because they don't have media yet.
Yeah, but I mean, well, Poland is really divided. What we saw, and thankfully that time, that I mean, this anti-PiS segment of society is much stronger than in Hungary. This is one thing, and another actually is that you know, very few people in Poland read papers. So the biggest issue are TV stations. Papers are not it's not a threat for the government actually, because you know, it is read all together by 1 million people maximum. So the TV stations are at stake, I guess.
I wouldn't agree in total what you said, because I think that I think more people are reading the papers. A lot of people are reading just like in libraries and in other ways.
Who goes to libraries?
Oh, there are many people going to libraries. I often work in the library, and there are also people that I wouldn't.
Yeah, of course, there are some people, but for
Okay.
for 38 millions, if
Yeah.
there are, I don't know, 50,000 people going to a library even every day.
Yeah.
It's
Maybe
nothing.
I'm a little bit more optimistic, maybe. Okay, but we have now a question from Patricia and from Ulf, and also Roman wrote a question here. Maybe you can also just like mention that. I think we can make it just like that. But Patricia, you ask, and then we answer, and then the next one. I think we try it like that. Okay.
Sure. Thanks so much for organizing this. I'm calling from Amsterdam, but I come from Warsaw originally. I'm an artist, so that's a very different context for me. So it's interesting to hear all of you. And considering all of it, what was said today, I'm wondering, what do you think, people who work with the media and create the content, what is the role of public media today? Or yeah, what do you think should be the role of it, if not polarizing and putting us all into separate political camps?
So maybe I will start. I think that it's difficult to call them the media. I'm sure there are some journalists that still try to remain independent even at the public media, but the whole profile of them is not like the media at all. They are often called a propaganda tool of our government, but I don't know if it's propaganda. They are just a communication ministry. So we hear exactly the same what from the Wiadomości, TVP, TVP, as the ministers would say. So they just speak the same language, and yeah, that's it. They are, most of all, in most cases, they're not the media, just the communication ministry, maybe.
I don't know whether you saw this last interview of President Duda made in public TV. It was, I guess, the elections were on Sunday, so the interview was taken on Thursday or Friday, I don't remember, and it was made by a journalist. She's a news anchor from Wiadomości TVP, and last question of her was, Mr. President, what should we do in order you win? And it was, it was an interview aired just after the main news. So nowadays it has nothing to do with public media, but as far as I understood, your question was much more general, what it should be, and of course it should be objective. Of course it should, present all the opinions and give voice to the voiceless, etc. But I guess in our political situation I don't really believe it may happen in the nearest future.
I just wanted to add, I would like to use the Polish law to answer the question what it should be, what the public media should be. So there is the Broadcasting Act, and there is the Article 21, and it says that public broadcasting should fulfill the mission, the public service mission, by offering diverse programs, and here I will read, and other services characterized by pluralism, impartiality, balance, and independence. And it doesn't.
Just like wanted to also add one short thing. I think I always compare the main news on the TVP, so the main station, TV station, really with North Korea. So when you look at the North Korean news, so this is very, very similar to that, really, and this is not exaggerated, I think. But there are also some public station, especially the radio station, where news are presented in a a rather balanced way. We have to say this. I think this is Troika, for instance, a radio station. So there, the news are somewhat balanced. You know, we have now still, I think, 10 minutes until we go offline from Facebook. But we have two questions. Ulf, you have a question. I would like you I would ask you to keep it short, and then if Roman wants to just like formulate his question once again. So Ulf, it's your floor.
Yes, thank you. First I must say sorry because of my delayed joining. My question is, today I've heard that there are two women who are working on a women's rights movement, were forbidden to talk with German media. It was said by the police. Is there something like this in Poland now happening, or is it kind of rumor?
You know something about that, Carolina?
I didn't follow the news today, but
I didn't.
I also haven't heard of that, but actually it very much fits what has been going on recently. So the whole character of where we are aiming at with the police giving out fines for even covering anti-governmental protests, or even when there were not many people involved, but even there was once this lady individually protesting under the Troika radio, and she was also kept taken by the police. So I haven't heard of that, but it sounds possible.
Roman, you want to ask your questions once again? We have some 7 or 8 minutes now. Roman? No?
Self-censorship, yes, this was the question, yeah?
Yeah, you see this on the Facebook. So the question was, what about self-censorship among Polish journalists? I think it's an interesting question. What do you think in this situation? And why does neither journalistic solidarity nor even a code of ethics work? You want to ask? You want to answer, Ludwika?
Well, I don't have much to say. I don't think there is self-censorship in private media, and solidarity among journalists, there's nothing like that. I mean, this journalistic let's say community is as divided as the political one. So there's nothing like solidarity, you know, concerning journalists. Even, you know, you mentioned Troika, which is a public radio program, and only, you know, there are more and more influence of government on this public program, and some journalists left 3 years ago, some 5 years ago, and and 1 month ago there is this very last wave of just, you know, journalists leaving the program because you know, the editor-in-chief tried to influence the program really, like, in a way which is not a delicate way. It was made very openly and in a very stupid way, and some journalists left to protest the way it was done, but those who left before were criticizing them. Oh, why so far? You should have done it like 2 or 3 years before. So you've been working there for so many years, and you haven't seen any, political, let's say, pressure, and now you are acting as if you were a virgin who just noticed what's going on, although it was visible and perfect clear even 2 years ago and 5 years ago. And as I said, this journalist world is very, very divided. So, but about self-censorship, I don't know, I think it is non-existent just because of this polarization. So so far it is not necessary. Maybe in public media, certainly, but in private media, I don't think so.
Okay. I think there's maybe the last question, which seems to me very interesting. So maybe before we close, for the bigger community and come maybe to the smaller one, we can just like Paulina says we can leave it, but maybe very shortly. What do you think? Because there was this question of Stepanie Eppen. I think it's an interesting one, not only to the media, but to the whole society. So what will happen after this election? So do you think that the civil movements or the civic movement will just like raise in a way now that we have the 40th anniversary of the foundation of the solidarity movement? So will it change something? Maybe very short, Ludwika and Karolina, what do you think? You have 1 minute each.
I would say probably.
I would say I rather not. I think that we gained a huge mobilization at the elections, and many people that believed that they may change something got totally disappointed. Now I think that we will more react to what PiS will be doing, and maybe it will rise huge protests. We'll see. It depends on PiS. The more radical their moves will be, the more potential of revolution they may bring.
Okay, so I can say that I hope that something will change from this year on because of the solidarity, maybe. But
sadly, hope is not enough.
Pardon me?
Sadly, hope is not enough.
Yeah, you are right. Hope is not enough. It needs action. Yeah. Okay, so I will close it now, or I'm closing now our discussion for the great public, and you can stay with us here. But thank you, everyone who ever watched us, and I hope that this was an input that you can just like work with or think about, or of course you can contact us in that way or another. And yeah, so thank you very much, and we are now just like switching to the other just like overview. So
yeah,
maybe.
thank you Jan, for you being a host tonight, for your initiative for this talk and for your moderation. Thank you, Karolina and Ludwika. It was really interesting, and I think we also had slightly different perspectives, and I mean the questions show that there is a lot to discuss, and I think we will continue now in our informal round. This was the last kitchen talk before the summer break, as I said in the beginning. Thank you very much for those of you who regularly participated. Thank you for your initiatives and proposals. If you feel like having a bright and nice idea for next ones coming in September, just write us. We will also post the link now in Facebook to our website, where you can watch all the kitchen talks that we had before. And yeah, thank you once again for watching, and see you in September.
Thank you also.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yasmin, are we?
Well, I hope it stopped now, because otherwise
It's 27
super awkward now. But I think I stopped it. So
Thank you very much also. You can stop the recording as well.